people like me. You need people like me so you can point your fucking fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
Okay, we'll start with this. Unbeaten up-and-comer in the women's bantamweight division, Brie Howling. Brie posted this to her social media. A caption that reads, "I am thrilled to announce that I'll be stepping back into the ring on May 10th in Philadelphia. This time, I'll be facing off against former IBF world champion and WBA and WBC world title challenger, Nancy Franco. Nancy brings serious experience to the table with over 40 professional fights and 277 rounds fought. I'm ready to step up and showcase to the world what I'm made of."
This is good.
Nancy Franco's coming off a knockout loss to another unbeaten up-and-comer in Jasmine Artiga. She was knocked out in the first round of her last fight. But the reason it's good that Brie Howling is facing her next is because Brie Howling has never fought more than once a year since she debuted as a professional, sporting a professional record of 6 wins with no losses, no draws, 2 knockouts. Brie went pro way back there in September of 2019. And since then, she's only fought once a year each year, once in 2020, once in 2021, 2022, 2023. Thankfully, she's already had a fight this year, and this will be the first time in her career that she gets 2 fights in a single calendar year instead of just 1. The byproduct of not having a major promotional outfit behind you, backing you like a Matchroom,
right,
or a Top Rank,
right,
or a Golden Boy, when you don't have that promotional engine pushing you.
Resources are scarce.
Everything is that much more difficult to do. It's that much more difficult to climb up those ranks via those sanctioning bodies. It's that much more difficult to pin down opponents, quality opponents.
Good ones.
Every time I've seen Brie Howling in action, she's looked sharp. And that's on the schedule that she's been on. So if you can get her 2 and 3 and maybe even 4 fights in a single calendar year, imagine how much better she's gonna look.
Be facing Nancy Franco soon.
Nancy sports a professional record of 19 wins with 19 losses, 2 draws, 5 knockouts, having been knocked out 4 times in 40 professional bouts. She's a lot more experienced than Brie Howling in terms of
pro fights and rounds in the bank.
But this is exactly the kind of fight that a fighter with only 6 pro bouts needs. A developmental fight, an experience fight.
So what changed for Brie Howling?
What do you mean?
You're saying that she's only been fighting once a year for something like 4 or 5 years, however long it's been. But for the first time in her career, she's going to squeeze in 2 fights into the same calendar year. What changed?
She recently signed to King's Promotions. King's Promotions, a well-to-do promotional outfit, a small one that isn't as big as a Matchroom or a Top Rank or a Golden Boy, but they do their own shows, and they are now getting Brie Howling fights, unbeknownst to most. Before Alicia Baumgartner paired up with Matchroom, she was fighting under the King's Promotions banner.
They used to do her fights, now they're doing Brie's.
Brie's upcoming fight with Nancy Franco, who was last in action earlier this year in February, opposite the ring unbeaten Jasmine Artiga, who stopped her in the first round. I wouldn't be surprised if Brie Howling does the same thing.
Nancy's lost her last 5 fights.
But I'm not critical of the opponent because this is the kind of opponent that most fighters are fighting at 5-0 and 6-0. This is normal.
What isn't is that Brie's only been fighting once a year for years now.
What you usually see in the beginning stages of a fighter's career is 3, sometimes even 4 fights in a single calendar year. Then, as they step up in class and start facing better opponents, start making better money, the fights get spaced out.
Down to 2 fights a year.
Most of the time, that's what you see. It seems like Brie Howling has a lot of lost time that she needs to make up for, but the silver lining is she's still very young. She's still in her mid-20s, so she has time.
Campaigning in the bantamweight division, bantamweight, that's where Denmark's own Dina Thorsland holds both the WBO and WBC titles.
Dina Hughes, she's got the WBA, and Miyo Yoshida, she's got the IBF.
3 world champions.
Based on what I've seen, I'd give Brie Howling reasonable odds to beat Miyo Yoshida and Nina Hughes here today, just based on what I've seen so far. Over time, with more fights and more experience, I think she'll be more than ready.
She's good.
All she's really ever needed is some kind of backing, some kind of push.
She likely beats Nancy Franco in May. She probably stops her.
But the real virtue of it is, she's already had one fight this year. That will be her second fight, still leaving plenty of time for a third and fourth fight later on in the year.
In the summer, in the fall, in the winter.
There's lost time to make up for it, and Brie Howling intends to make up for it. Keep your eyes peeled for the ring return of Brie Howling in May. And super middleweight news, the latest on the ongoing saga between Canelo Alvarez and David Benavidez. David Benavidez, who tagged Turki Al-Sheikh on his social media saying, "Let's bring the biggest and most exciting fight to Saudi. This will be the biggest Mexican versus Mexican-American fight in the history of boxing, and what better place to do it than the kingdom? For the entire world to see. This fight is for the pride and glory. I fight for greatness, not money. Your Excellency, if I do not beat Canelo, I will donate my entire purse to any kid's charity of your liking."
Yeah, right.
You don't believe him?
You do?
When I do beat Canelo, I will be donating a huge amount of that purse to benefit children's hunger across the world. I'm a champion of the people and will continue to fight the best.
When were you ever fighting the best? You didn't fight the best at super middleweight. You're not fighting the best now at light heavyweight.
I stand by my words.
Trying to cultivate public favor.
Trying to get the boxing community at large to rally behind him behind the guise of a philanthropist. In truth, it's not the worst idea to see if you can't get Mr. Turki Al-Sheikh himself, His Excellency, to bankroll this show, to bankroll this fight. It's not the worst idea, but if it's not about money, then why involve him? That if it's not about money for you,
why tag him?
Well, maybe it's because he figures that's the only way to get Canelo the 150 or 200 million he talked about earlier this week. So he starts up with this altruistic charity stuff.
Some people are already eating it up.
Twitter user that goes by the name Michael Abbey, a rube, said, "Sounds to me like he's looking for solutions to make the fight and saying he would donate the money. Doesn't sound like someone looking for a payday. That excuse is out the window now."
Oh, because you believe everything you hear.
Another Twitter user that goes by the name Valiant Prize Fight says, "Unlike others, said he would donate his entire purse if he doesn't beat Canelo. Doesn't sound like a $200 million payday he seeks. Sounds like he knows he beats Canelo."
Sounds like another critical thinker.
You think David Benavidez has spent this much time in the super middleweight division not moving up? You think he spent this much time on Canelo because he plans on giving all or most of the money away?
Look, this business is for two reasons. Make money and more money.
Is that even the first time you've ever heard a fighter say that it's not about the money and they don't care about the money?
You believe him.
The prize fighter that doesn't care about the size of the prize fighter that's been killing himself to make this weight year in, year out.
This is how they fool the fans.
Trying to cultivate public favor by presenting themselves as some kind of an altruist. But I don't think for a second that David Benavidez and his team have spent this much time on a Canelo Alvarez fight because what they plan on doing is giving all the proceeds away.
No.
All the money.
No.
This business is for two reasons. Make money and more money.
Is that even the first time you heard a fighter say that he'd give his entire purse away? Tyson Fury said that ahead of the first Wilder fight. He said he'd give his entire purse away afterwards, and to date, we don't know what charity.
He didn't give anything away.
Tyson Fury would have given away 7 figures because that's what he got for the fight, around 7 figures for the fight. If he would have gave his whole purse to charity, we would have heard what charity it was by now.
We haven't.
Took people long enough to realize, yeah, that's all bullshit. That's all bullshit. Because you don't say something like that publicly, then get all tight-lipped about what charity you're giving it to.
For that, you might as well have said nothing at all.
Look, this business is for two reasons. Make money and more money.
It's all about appearing as a martyr to the boxing community at large, that he's fighting for us.
I'm not hungry.
Somebody is. David, his father, his promoter are hungry for Canelo Alvarez payday. A big Canelo Alvarez purse. Nobody spends this much time on Canelo for any other reason. And you tell yourself, no, it's not about Canelo. It's about unifying the belts. It's about undisputed.
So you didn't start caring about Undisputed until Canelo Alvarez rolled around because you were in this division before it.
Before he even got there, before he started on that undisputed run, if it were about undisputed and unifying titles, if it were about legacy, you had a head start.
You need another 2 fights, 2 good fights, and then it can go to be a pay-per-view.
The obvious answer fans would say, well, we want the best fighting the best. We're tired of paying for C versus D. We want A versus A.
Well, you have 2 A's, no doubt.
That's what I mean. 2 A's and David Benavidez and Caleb Plant.
To see 2 A fighters, you need to pay. You cannot be for free.
It's the same theme, you understand. David Benavidez doesn't promote himself. That's his promoter you're hearing.
He seems very money-oriented.
But I'm supposed to believe David isn't. I'm supposed to believe that this is all about the belts. This is all about legacy for David. Well, if it's all about the belts and all about legacy, why did you only now start caring about these things? You could have unified titles before Canelo even got there.
2019, you and Caleb were both champions, unbeaten champions on the same side of the street. And he was calling for the fight.
He was calling you out. Your promoter, he had another idea. He had other plans.
You need another 2 fights, 2 good fights, and then it can go to be a pay-per-view.
The obvious answer fans would say, well, we want the best fighting the best. We're tired of paying for C versus D. We want A versus A.
Well, you have 2 A's, no doubt.
That's what I mean. 2 A's and David Benavidez and Caleb Plant.
To see 2 A fighters, you need to pay. You cannot be for free.
Allow me to state the obvious. This is not about belts. David don't care about belts because if he cared about belts, he wouldn't have fucked off his 2 times.
This is not about belts. This is not about legacy. If it were about legacy, he would have unified a title by now. He's been in this division for a decade. You stupid?
You need me to tell you that? You need me to read in between the lines? Maybe you do. It's not that I'm so smart. It's not because of that. It's because you're illiterate.
Gullible.
You would have to be. You think all these fighters across all these divisions are all spending this much time on a Canelo Alvarez fight, trying to get one for any reason other than the money?
Well, maybe they are, but not David. He's different.
No, you're stupid. You're stupid is what it is, and you're one of these schmucks that likes to romanticize fighters and romanticize boxing. David Benavidez is after money the same as everybody else, and I don't even hold that against him. It's prize fighting.
What do you expect? Do you think that anyone is going to subject themselves to the rigors of boxing and putting your body through this, getting punched in the head, making weight,
for any reason other than money? Well, need I remind you?
Look, this business is for 2 reasons. Make money and more money.
So when David Benavidez comes out talking all this charity talk that he doesn't care about the money, that's just a PR stunt, an effort to make Canelo seem like the greedy one, Canelo seem like the villain, when in reality, you both want the same thing.
your promoter especially.
It's the name of the game. There's nothing wrong with that. I don't hold it against him. What I do hold against him is how disingenuous.
This is not a comic book, pal.
Boxers may be modern-day gladiators, but they're not comic book superheroes. They're not that altruistic. And if you need me to tell you that, well, it's not because I'm so smart. It's because you're a fucking moron. Men's heavyweight news. Per a tweet from Michael Benson, the IBF will most likely order Philippe Hrgovic versus Daniel Dubois winner on June 1st to face Anthony Joshua for the vacant IBF heavyweight world title if the Tyson Fury versus Alexander Usyk winner vacates as expected due to their guaranteed rematch clause. This is all provided there is a second fight. And to me, it seems more likely than not that there would be a rematch if Usyk loses. But if Fury loses,
I don't think he activates it.
history is repeating itself. That's how Tyson Fury lost the IBF title the first time, as a result of a rematch clause. Then it was Vladimir's rematch clause, and Vladimir activated it. As a result, Tyson Fury was unable to fight his mandatory challenger at that time. If he wins this fight,
He'll have to vacate again, this time.
and I feel it's more likely than not that we'll see a second fight between Fury and Usyk if Fury wins. But if Usyk wins, I don't think Fury activates the rematch clause, at which point what you have to ask yourself is, what is Usyk going to do? In a situation where he beats Fury, but he doesn't have to run it back with him, does he go on to fight the winner of Hrgovic versus Dubois?
He won't be free to fight Anthony for a 3rd time. Not that I want him to.
In that situation, what does Anthony Joshua do? Who does Anthony Joshua fight? Well, Eddie Hearn has declared that he expects Anthony Joshua versus Deontay Wilder to still happen before the end of their careers. AJ wants that fight before he retires. I think Wilder will come again.
These fights,
Hrgovic versus Dubois, Wilder versus Zhang, are all set to go down in June on the undercard of Better Beef versus Bivol, so we will get those answers shortly. And in a situation where Usyk wins, but he doesn't have to fight Fury again, he has to fight the winner of Hrgovic versus Dubois. Anthony Joshua can then fight the winner of Wilder versus Zhang.
that's what I think they had in mind when they made this sequence of fights. The event coordinators, His Excellency Mr. Turki Al-Sheikh.
It keeps the momentum going in the heavyweight division and alleviates the burden on the promoters and their broadcast partners to make big heavyweight fights happen on their dime. They're not having to do that. The Saudis are doing it on theirs, but the promoters and their broadcast partners are still getting that content.
Everybody wins.
Well, everybody except the loser. What could be the loser of Wilder versus Zhang? What is a genuinely intriguing fight. Now, you could argue that Zhang did a lot better against Joseph Parker than Deontay Wilder did, but that doesn't necessarily mean that Zhang beats Deontay Wilder, because triangle theories, they don't work.
Parker is the control.
Joe Joyce beat the hell out of Joseph Parker. In turn, Zhang beat the hell out of Joe Joyce, just to end up dropping a decision to Joseph Parker.
Who would have thought over a year ago that Joseph Parker would be at the center of all these big fights and everything that's happening in the heavyweight division, at least to this extent?
When you think about Zhang versus Wilder as a fight, both men having fought Joseph Parker, it's the same underlying principle. You can't use a triangle theory for this because triangle theories don't work.
Does that mean Wilder wins?
That means Wilder's got a shot.
Even if you don't like him and you don't like his chances, he still has a shot.
What that also means is that if you are going to go with Zhang to beat Deontay Wilder, if you are going to do that, it would have to be for some other reason than the Parker fight, than how he looked in the Parker fight. It would have to be based on something else.
What?
The fighters themselves, perhaps? Intangibles? What does Deontay Wilder really have left to give to the sport? You can ask that question because that's a legitimate question. He seems distracted, otherwise preoccupied. He recently made an appearance on a reality TV show. It looks like he has one foot halfway out the door.
After he lost to Tyson Fury, he turned to psychedelic drugs to try to help him cope with the loss.
Most of last year, he sat out. He sat out for most of it.
What's the relevance of that?
Does he even want to fight? Does he even have his heart in it anymore? See, maybe you can't use Joseph Parker as the anchor, the control for the argument that Zhang might beat him. Maybe you have to look at something else, and what you can look at are the intangibles. Where is Wilder's head at these days? Is his heart still in it? Is it still in the sport of boxing?
If it's not, he could be in big trouble.
Zhang outweighs him by a lot. Zhang may be eye-level to Wilder, but he's still a lot bigger than Wilder. And I don't doubt for a second that Zhang could hurt him.
So where is his head at?
Coming off the loss to Joseph Parker, the demoralizing loss, the one-sided loss, what did that do to his morale, his headspace? If you put him in there with Zhang,
He couldn't find his right hand with Joe. Can he find it with Zhang?
he fucking better.